Nadine, I met you when we were in
India, in Rishikesh.
So what did happen there?
We did a Kundalini yoga teacher training.
And I am here in Pai in this amazing landscape.
It's
Look,
so beautiful.
because of this girl. She said to me, if you ever go to
If you ever go
Chiang
to
Mai,
Thailand,
if
you
you
have
go
to go to
Pai,
Pai.
yeah, and I was going to Chiang Mai, so I ended up here.
And I wasn't here even.
And you were not, but you are here, and
Now
I'm gonna leave on Sunday. But there's a completion of a circle because you are the one who is the reason why I am here this time.
And now we sit here together, and then I'm gonna stay here for 2 more months. So it's a beautiful completion.
And not only that, but you have been doing something very special since I met you last time, because we didn't see each other since the end of January.
Yeah.
And you went back to Europe after a while.
I went back to the Netherlands and I wrote a book in less than 2 months, which is completely insane to me if I think about it. I put over 30,000 words on a paper in less than 2 months.
How many pages is it? 30,000 words?
It's 150,
100.
150 around there.
And do you have a name for your book?
It is Your Journey to Consent, and it is a practical guide to understand, prevent, and heal from sexual violence. A little bit of a heavy topic.
But it is happening all the time, no?
It's actually the statistics, sorry, that was a difficult word, from 2024 are that 1 in 3 women worldwide either experience sexual violence or domestic physical violence from a romantic partner. And 1 in 3, that's insane.
And does it happen all over the world, or is it more? So in Europe is not better than in the rest of the world?
This is actually one of the biggest myths we have around sexual violence, is that we all think that sexual violence is something that happens with women who are poor or women who are living in Africa, Asia, or Islamic countries, where sexual violence is one of the only things on this world who doesn't use discrimination towards anything. There is sexual violence towards every gender. Unfortunately, there is way more sexual violence against women. There is sexual violence against any race, in any religion, in any socio-economical class, so to say. It happens everywhere. It only gets spoken about almost none of the time, so nobody knows. But there is sexual violence in Europe, absolutely. A lot, unfortunately.
Okay, I will just probably ask a question which is maybe a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it. How will you define sexual violence?
That's actually a really good question.
What is sexual violence?
I feel like everyone should define for themselves what sexual violence is, because that's also part of my book, but there are some explanations on what is sexual violence. And sexual violence is the forced act of any sexual act towards another person, which can be, of course, rape, but it can also be sexual harassment, where someone doesn't touch you, but they still make a comment which is really not okay about your body, or someone just groping you, which is touching you. But sexual violence can also be leaking of someone's nudes. And sexual violence also includes the acts, the intent to do it. So someone wanting to rape you, but then you end up fighting him off, is also already sexual violence. And another part of sexual violence is, of course, also sex trafficking. We have female genital mutilation, but there's a lot, and there is a lot what falls under the gray scope of rape. Because, for example, an example I always find really interesting is rape is sex without consent. So that means that there is not a full body yes from both partners to have sex. However, how would you classify it if someone is married for 5 years and then the libido changes from time to time, and one partner really wants to have sex, the other partner hasn't been interested in sex, and then maybe after 5 rejections, one partner says to the other one, like, you always reject me, like, I feel really hurt, maybe I want a divorce. And then next time, the situation is still the same. Partner A wants sex, partner B doesn't want sex, but partner B complies with having sex because they're like, wait, I cannot reject him for the 6th time, then he's gonna divorce me maybe.
So the force behind it.
It's a force behind it, and in my opinion, that is unconsensual sex. Because there are boundaries that are overridden, but at the same time, I do want to say, like, it's really important to get into topics like this, but I feel like we have to have these discussions without immediately jumping into criminal law. Because obviously, it is really important to talk about these gray zones, but making that a criminal act can make it even bigger of a taboo to talk about it.
I actually ended up in a very unpleasant situation with an American guy. I wrote actually a blog post about it, but then I asked a critical question. And I know this is a very touchy topic since we are talking about it. I know in many women are abused, that's for sure. But then again, I know that women are also being used in the political power or in game powers to go and say that somebody has raped them or not. Yeah, do you understand what I mean?
I know what you mean.
And I know it's a very, very touchy question.
I feel like it's the same with a lot of men right now bringing up that there are allegations against them which are untrue. And there is a lot going on about this, and for me personally, I feel like these topics should be off the table until we solve the actual problem, which is all of the sexual violence that is happening. Because of course it's really bad if a woman lies about being sexually abused for money or for fame or whatever. However, the amount of women who are suffering, and also men who are suffering, and all of society who is currently suffering due to people actually being sexually abused, feels more important to me than having these discussions. And I'm not saying that these discussions are not important. I'm saying that for me, they're a little bit of clutter that goes in the way of dealing with the actual problem, which is sexual violence.
And do men also experience it, or are the
men experience sexual violence as well? And I feel like that's an even bigger taboo than women experiencing sexual violence.
Interesting.
Because there are so many societal gender expectations of like a man always wants to have sex. So for men, there's almost a bigger taboo on saying that they've been sexually abused than for women, which is something that is really important. And also in my book, I really write it from a neutral perspective, because to me, the role of a perpetrator and the role of a victim or survivor of sexual violence is not linked to a gender. Unfortunately, what we see in society is a lot of male perpetrators, female survivors. However, it goes both ways, and both ways is really wrong. So I feel like we should look at it from that perspective and not always from the gender perspective. With the nuance that, of course, we really have to stop the current situation from happening, which is rooted in a lot of sexism and patriarchy in our society anyway.
Yeah, and that's exactly one of the things which I discovered. Like, I was talking to someone, I don't remember who, but I was talking about, like, I feel when I was in Turkey, there is not so much sexual pressure. Like in Europe, we are very sexualized women.
Yeah.
But I felt like in Turkey it was like totally absent, and it's probably because of the religious code. But I really enjoyed it, that I didn't need to be this piece of meat that has to pleasure people's eyes, the way I look or the way I dress or the way I behave. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel it is somehow also, it was distance in Nepal as well. I didn't feel that sexual pressure, not pleasure. And it makes me feel like as a woman I feel different actually.
I feel like in a lot of European countries we have this influence of porn, I would say. Like, there's a lot of porn, there's a lot of sex. We all say sex sells, and it's true. So there's a lot of this pressure of like being attractive to a man or to get something. And when you take that away, I feel like that's such a vulnerable and beautiful process to go through. For example, when you make nudity something normal, like being in nature, and if it's appropriate with the local culture, to just be naked, like, and not because of sex, but just because we're a body and it's our body. And I feel like there's so much power in kind of like taking that ownership back and to see your body as more than a toy for pleasure, which oftentimes now happens. And to me, actually, that really big part of sexism and like seeing women as a sex toy, the way you describe it, and that pressure is a part of rape culture, because by objectifying a woman, it gets kind of like less terrible to rape them or to do something to them, because you see them as an object and not as another human.
But men are also going through this process. I think like there is a lot of pressure on how they look like in West. Like it's a lots of focus on how. But back to another question: why do you think sex is such a powerful topic? I mean, it is the power of creation we have, humans.
Yeah.
But it is also abused. Why do you think it is?
That's a really good question. For me personally, I feel like sex is one of the most beautiful ways to connect, because it can really be a deep spiritual, emotional, soul level connection with someone. However, if you take that connection away from it, it is really easy to take something away from someone, to take their power away, to take their bodily autonomy away. It really touches on you having your own body and you owning your own body. And by sexually abusing someone, what happens is that you take away their right to decide what happens to their body. And that is one of the most persuasive and terrible human rights violations we can make, but also one of the things that leads to the most traumas in the body. So it's really, I don't want to say it this way, but I am going to say it this way, a really powerful tool to kind of like influence someone. And that's also what we see, for example, in a lot of wars where rape is used as a weapon. Because through sexual violence, we can influence a person, but we also influence the community that stands around them. Because sometimes people who have been raped, they get looked at as if they are the problem, and they get put in isolation away from society.
Because there's a lot of shame around it.
A lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of taboo. So it is a way to influence not only the person that is actually it is happening to, it is a way to bring fear into the people around it, and a way to bring kind of like a division between a group of people.
Why did you write this book?
That's a really good question. I feel like sexual violence has been a really big topic in my life. I've experienced sexual violence when I was very young, 15. And afterwards, being a teenager, being a student, there was a lot of gray area situations, I would say. It took me 10 years to understand what consent was, and it took me 10 years to really understand that my body is mine and that sex can be pleasure. And since I have a background in human rights as well, I actually wrote a master thesis on gender-based violence, because it's a topic that's so touching to me. I felt like I want to do something for the world, but it's not going to help if I tell anyone, this is the law, we should all do this. I wanted to allow people to think for themselves, because in my perspective, if I can get people to think and I can give them some information and a question and they can find their answers, we can actually start a change. Because I know how long it took for me, and I've done anything in the book you can think of to heal, if you want to call it healing. Like, I've done EMDR therapy, I've done 8 years of yoga now, I've done any energy healing you can think of, I've done psychedelics, and it is such a deep process, and it's such a deep wound, I would say, to really heal from this and to really feel safe again in the body and to feel good and to enjoy your life. That I was like, if I can make that easier for anyone else by giving them a book with questions so they can think about all the things that I had to learn the hard way, my life would be useful in a way. And
Is this a book for men or for women?
everyone,
For everyone.
all of us are touched by the topic of sexual violence.
And where can people find your book?
It will be published in 2 weeks, and then it will be on Amazon and on some different publishers. I will send it to you.
Say the name of it again, please.
Your Journey to Consent.
Your Journey to Consent.
And it's a practical guide to understand, prevent, and heal sexual violence.
Thank you.
Thank you.